All right. It is Tuesday, November 5th at 11:09 a.m. and I'm here with my friend Orion. How do you pronounce your last name? Ohev?
Ohev, yep.
Ohev. Today is the election down your way. So it's a very I basically just remind my family, just don't pay attention. So
Yeah. Tad auspicious of a day for sure.
yeah. Dude, so I've wanted to talk to you for a long time, and in the end, I got to hang with you in Santa Fe, so we talked a little bit. By the way, I bought that card game. The shrink wrap came off it, but we haven't played it as a family yet. So
nice. Oh, that's good. I'm glad. You're talking about Dutch Blitz, right?
That's right.
That's awesome. I'm glad the fun is spreading.
Yeah, it's reminds me of a game we play called Speed. It's kind of a cross between that and a few other games. So
cool.
Yeah, dude. So I think I probably already told you this too, but I first came across your work probably a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And part of what caught my attention right off the bat is in a lot of your videos, you have the, I want to say Metatron.
Metatron, yep.
It is Metatron. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
Metatron's cube.
Yeah. And I have all sorts of questions about that potentially. But it's something that's caught my attention for a long time. And, but the other thing it's funny enough, I watched it again last night. It appeared on my radar, but you had a video talking about purpose, and what you said in it was profound. I hadn't heard that before, which was you don't want to try to be your purpose. You kind of, you kind of it finds you when you're
or happens through you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the curious thing is, I think I was trying to be my purpose for a little bit there, right? It was like, I want to dial this thing. I kind of viewed it like a crosshairs, right? So it was like, shoot for the center. And that was a bit freeing, actually, hearing it described that way. So and the curious thing is, when I look at my incarnation cross from a human design perspective, I seem to be kind of it's leaning in. Now, of course, I'm on a slightly different trajectory now, in that when I talk to Dr. Eleanor, that who she is, she calls them patterns of orientation, and there's various different elements to it. So I'm still a Sphinx, but I've also got Cross of the Maya there as well, and that's sent me on a whole new thing. Anyways, I am rambling. Mostly, I wanted to say, remind myself how I met you, and then. I think if you want to introduce yourself, I was actually reviewing your about page on your website as well, and I realized I hadn't read that before. And reading that, we have a very similar kind of upbringing and experience in a lot of ways. So it'd be interesting to sort of tap into all that. But yeah, dude, who are you? And what lights your fire? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for that reflection. It's always nice to hear from people who watch the YouTube videos. Those videos just go out into the ethers, and I never know who's watching or what the impact is. So it's always nice to hear. And yeah, that is a message, the part that you shared, that is very big and important to how I be in the world. And, the separation between doing and action, and who I'm actually being, and then how purpose happens through me when I'm being who I'm here to be. Purpose, doing, all of that. So I think, the journey for me, who am I? Well, I'm a Santa Fe resident in New Mexico that currently find myself in Santa Fe. I'm someone who is trying to bridge a lot of worlds, trying to bridge the business world. So what part of my purpose is bridging worlds and helping people be in the now, helping people navigate uncertainty. So I do that on many levels. I work with institutions and teams to help them navigate uncertainty and innovation, especially with all the technology innovations and things happening in politics and the economic landscape and business landscape. So I help CEOs, executives, founders, and teams navigate that uncertainty in more powerful ways. I also help individuals, entrepreneurs navigate uncertainty utilizing tools like Qigong, human design, and a couple other systems, the gene keys and talent dynamics. But the thread really is navigating uncertainty. And I think that's been my personal journey, which we'll talk more about. So, coming back to your purpose thing for my YouTube video, it's, when I'm being who I'm here to be, which means following the wisdom of my body, trusting the neural networks in my heart and gut to work with my mind and following that wisdom to beyond logic, sometimes in directions my mind really hates, then what I watch happen through me is all of these things I just said, the doing, the leadership consulting, the Qigong teaching, the human design, and there's this whole new world I'm getting into that helps is part of the bridging called futures thinking. So that's the industry I'm getting pulled into at the moment. So I'll pause there and open to sharing more of my story, but I'll let you chime in here.
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess one of the things you're helping businesses, you're bringing esoteric systems and stuff to them. Um, is your purpose your mission statement? Is it are you when you think about your purpose and what you're doing right now? Is it that you're aligning to that incarnation cross purpose, or is there a more broadly defined purpose? Like even within a company, there's a mission statement, right? And I actually kind of, for me, because I went through that exercise with my own companies, made one for myself, and that was before human design, right? Like, what is
Yeah,
my mission statement?
yeah,
And
that's great.
I need to go back and reflect on that because I wonder how close I was. I haven't thought about it in a long time, actually. But yeah, like, do you, based on that sort of opening salvo of, you don't want to try to be your purpose. When you're embodying it, the magic happens. When you're working in business, do you have a stated purpose mission statement? And is it your incarnation cross or is it something
Yeah.
different?
Oh, I love this distinction. I mean, the way, purpose to me is my purpose is to be who I'm here to be. And I know that's really super vague and probably frustrating to hear, but what I mean by that is um, the mission statement when I'm being who I'm here to be, which again, when I say that, what I mean is when I'm using my mind in the way it was biologically designed to be used, which is to support the wisdom of the body, to solve problems along the path the body guides me on.
Mm.
And that's the intersection of, science and magic and the known worlds and the unknown worlds that I really love. And I think human design bridges those two worlds really well. But there's a lot of science to back that idea that we really are here as humans to follow the wisdom of our body,
Mm.
to navigate, and we're also evolving. We're in a time of evolution where the lizard brain that has served us for many, many, many hundreds of thousands of years is wired to perceive immediate threat when most of the threats we experience today in the modern world are long term.
Mhm.
So, it's also about helping us be present with our lizard brains without reacting so much. So that's really my purpose. I feel like that's who I'm here to be. I'm here to follow my body. And my incarnation cross is what I notice happening when I'm successfully being that more and more. And it is these lines of synchronicity, these unpredictable paths, these dots from one to the next that continue to surprise me, that allow me to do various things in the world that allow that purpose to happen for
Mhm.
me, for others. So my mission statement in my business, I was like, I brought up my website because I'm in the transition right now. But right now, my website's tagline says, "Future proof your organization by unlocking the genius of your team." I feel like that's changing. My mission statement now is shifting into something around helping you build your capacity for uncertainty, helping you and your organization build capacity for uncertainty. It's really, that is what lights me up. That is what I get fired up about. That is why I do everything I do. That's the continuous thread. And if you look at my incarnation cross of the sleeping phoenix, 20, 34, 55, 59. It's all about being charismatic in the now, allowing my energy to guide my direction in the now, to guide my action, to guide my expression and manifestation in the now, and allowing my spirit to come alive and building a depth of intimacy with those around me. When I take my time and care to get into the correct relationships and correct opportunities. It's all about being right here, right now, not past, not present, and navigating all the uncertainty of not knowing exactly the next step and helping others do the same. So the doing looks like that in many different ways. And my mission statement is then a doing that offsprings off of that.
Mm-hmm. Um, Yeah, the 3420 is not part of my incarnation cross, but it's obviously a heavy influencer in my life. I'm recognizing now. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. Like that is a core. It's based on the incarnation cross. It's kind of a larger part of your being, your expression, I guess. So yeah, I guess in my mind, I'm like, what can I learn from Orion about that? I think I'll answer that a bit with I'm learning already. Like I'm in your class every week, and when you did that outdoor session in Santa Fe, I was already doing a little bit of that, but it was a much more gentle version of it, and I really appreciated not only and I wonder if it's coming out through that 3420 with you. It's just this intensity. Um, but also, I love the whole elements thing. I need to remember. I have difficulty remembering steps. So I really love the fire, the metal, that makes sense to me. And when I kind of think of inside being like first thing that thought that came to mind is like an old steamship where they're like shoveling coal into the engine, right? Oh shit, we're heading towards the wrong direction. We need, fire up the furnace so that we can actually like steer this vehicle. I'm gonna keep rambling here for a second because I'm curious to see how you respond to this. But like when I get up in the morning, sometimes it takes every ounce of energy just to get out of bed, and sometimes I think it's that I either it doesn't seem to be from lack of rest. It's like, oh shit, here we go again. I got to fire up the Exxon Valdez, and it's going to take 5 miles of coal to get up to speed, right? And it's kind of the same thing. As it almost seems to take just as much for me to park the thing. It's like a big old ship pulling into port. I can stop on a dime. I have that speed, but internally the machine's much bigger and needs to wind down and needs to pull into port. Otherwise, it crashes into shit. so, so I don't know if that clocks for you, but just thinking about, again, reading about some of your past story, the qigong stuff. Like, yeah, there's a lot of power in that channel in particular.
Yeah.
For me, it was bottled up. I didn't even know I had it, but I could also now know that people could sense it from me, and they were sometimes almost disappointed it doesn't come out of me, or other times when they've seen it. Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking and just let you respond to that because my mind's kind of racing here. But
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I have questions. I want to understand your experience a little bit more. The 34, I also waking up is the hardest moment of the day for me. I'd say. I think for different reasons. That's why I have some questions to understand your experience a bit more. But, I wake up feeling pretty chronic's not the right word, pretty acute anxiety each morning that the best way I can describe how I've come to understand it is just it's still the leftover fear of like really being in my power, like the 34, the gate of power, which is just to be in that power, to be in the now, to let it express, to let myself be the healthiest, most expressed version of me, which you alluded to my background on my about page, wasn't always the safest thing for me to do or be. So I wake up the more and more I surrender into an uncertain life, being guided by my body, never knowing exactly where I'm going, and completely, constantly expanding into new areas, that's an intense life. It's intense to co-create with life each and every day. It's intense to um, be that present, and I could choose to not do that at any moment. I could ignore my body and go do something that would feel more stable and predictable. um, but I don't want to do that, so this is what I have, this intensity. And to me it is intense, and I don't know if that's everyone's experience, which is why I want to ask you. But my inkling from working with a lot, hundreds and hundreds of clients over the years, is it is, if not everyone's experience, a large majority of the population's experience, which is why, these last few centuries and the industrial revolution, the shift to agricultural societies from egalitarian societies, it's like our ancestors, many, many, many generations back, have been our collective societal momentum has been moving in the direction of tribal structures, of needing to conform, needing to have certain citizens play certain roles in a tribal structure in order to grow populations, to grow cities, um, to deepen our ability to structure and organize, to be more in the masculine energy as a collective, and less in the chaotic feminine, in order to create these structures. And now we're being pulled as a collective, out of that extreme and back into the center, which I believe is bringing more and more people into that intensity, into whether they have a job in the quote unquote tribal structures or not, or they're following their body or following their mind. There's an intensity that I think more and more people are feeling. So to me, it's a little bit different than the analogy you're saying. It feels like I wake up, and it just takes turning like on a switch for the coal to fire up, uh, and or it's already firing up as I wake up, and it's if I move with it right away, um, there's no anxiety. If I even wait a split second, then I start to feel it and I start to get afraid of it, afraid of the day. And then it takes me a little time to like breathe and maybe avoid it, maybe watch a YouTube video or two to kind of like ease my way in, and then get up, get to my tea table, start my tea practice, start my qigong practice, which then helps me. I teach qigong because it changed my life. It saved my life. I was having really, really long, like 4 hour long panic attacks, and just really struggling to navigate intensity. And qigong is an amazing, amazing skill, tool to utilize.
Mm-hmm.
I may have got a little off track there, but I think somewhere in there I answered your question.
Yeah, no, well, it's helping me a great deal as well.
Yeah,
One of the things maybe, yeah, I want to ask this question.
yeah,
I I know how powerful and valuable it is, but I still find myself not doing it. Like
yeah.
literally, I have to. It's almost like I have to drag myself to do it,
Mm,
and then I'm always surprised, like what the fuck, dude? Like why didn't you just do that? That was great. So I don't know if that comes from a personal abuse kind of standpoint that's lingering, if it's a worthiness thing, or it's just not a habit yet. Um,
ah,
and so that I think is clearing up very quickly. Like even in the last week, is
good.
the recognition of old habits. Even just last night, I went to bed, and good old universe threw up a YouTube video, which was a guy just saying like the best positions to sleep. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Mm,
Because I've always had, until recently, an awareness was my psoas muscles were extremely, extremely weak. My pelvic floor was always facing down. I could tell the story, but it basically, I rediscovered through a boxing lesson just how bad my posture was. And so really, my everything was cut off. I was always holding my breath. When I drum, I hold my breath. When I was at the gym, the trainers would actually make fun of me for like, why are you always holding your breath? You're concentrating. But there was something about, like, at the time, I didn't realize that my psoas and my pelvic floor was actually facing down.
mm,
And so I wasn't getting that connection at all.
mm,
I was really, quite literally, my root was cut off from my sacral, is the only way
mm,
to kind of describe it.
mm,
And so, sure enough, last night, this guy's just a short video of like the two best sleeping positions. Well, one is on your side, but with a pillow between your legs, is kind of what he said, and the other one was on your back with your knees raised. And so I know this. I mean, my wife and I own this place called Funky Town. We have there's yoga nidra classes all the time. I've gone to them. I put my knees up. I know how good it feels that my back is flat. And usually those sessions are so enjoyable because air is actually moving through me because that pelvic floor is actually kind of I got the support I need. So I mean, I basically just answered my own question, which is um, sleep is so important to me, but even just sleeping, I was cut off from my root. And I think I wake up in the morning anxious because of that, because the breath is not flowing through me. So and that's just a note to myself to really extra be careful how I sleep at night. And then as far as like firing up, yeah, I wake up every morning. Lately, I wake up with this feeling of why bother? Like I
mm,
can't, it's um, that's what sits with me a lot is why bother. And I think part of it is I can complete open head knowledge, and I just get so much information. All of it sounds good, all of it sounds terrible, and then just trying to like uh, reconcile all that. I kind of,
mm,
if I'm not careful, I wake up exhausted
mm,
and not sure what impact I could possibly have. I think is
mm,
also yeah. So it's been an interesting ride this week because it's themes throughout my life, but it's actually kind of coming together.
mm,
I mean, the good news is I think I know how to set myself up for better sleep, and it's always incredible to me how back to basics it becomes. Like just
yeah.
you can breathe. Um, and then so yeah, I'll come back to my question. I am curious. Do you have to force yourself to do the qigong stuff? Do you have to? Is it still like, oh, I'm doing it again, and you get I guess the thing I realized yesterday too is I will tend to curl up in a chair and my posture isn't correct. Right, it's
Mm,
immediately like I'm cut off from my own oxygen supply, and I
yeah.
cozy, and then I don't want to move. And
Mm,
that was an epiphany I had yesterday at 52, which was like kind of pissed me off. I was like, fuck, I'm doing
mm.
it again. So
Well, first, yeah, really like love a lot of. I jotted down a couple notes to track some of the things you were sharing because you hit on a lot of important things. But for that part of you that was pissed that it took you till 52, just remember to zoom out. Like you're continuing the awareness work that your ancestors started. So
mhm,
you're 52 years out of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years to get to this awareness. So it's like it only took you 52 years out of this long period of time that your ancestors have been navigating various conditions and traumas and experiences to create the pattern. Number one, to create the pattern of and then to start to unravel it, and you've unraveled it. Like you did that for your whole line.
mhm,
Like that's amazing. So just inviting that little bit of a zoomed out perspective. And then you mentioned it right at the beginning of your share was you said something to the effect of like, I don't know if it's a self-sabotage thing because of a self-worth block, or if it's just not a habit yet. I think you nailed it with that question. For me, I'm always less looking for the answer. I'm looking for the right question. And that feels like a really juicy, important question because you're really asking like, is this a feminine challenge or a masculine challenge? Is this something that needs to be healed, or is my healing complete, and is it just a new choice I have to make? And
mhm,
I think that's the crux of it, because I think people in personal development that start this personal development journey, speaking from experience, will get lost jumping from one book to one retreat to one system to one coach to one to another to another to another to another to another, trying to heal and heal and heal and heal and heal. And at a certain point, the healing has happened. At a certain point, there's only so much of your childhood you can become aware of. There's only so much of your ancestral challenges that you can learn from your parents and grandparents and from research. There's only so much of your karmic stuff that you can bring awareness to. Like at a certain point, you built your capacity to feel your emotions. You know all of that. At a certain point, the feminine is complete. You've held space for yourself. You've been able to be present with yourself in a new way. The masculine needs to come into balance, and I'm not sure that that's where you're at, but it kind of sounded like it to me, because it sounded like a point in my journey that I'm really locking in my masculine right now on my journey, which is devotion, dedication, diligence, due diligence over there. It's the diligence and due diligence. Like, dude, it feels like the feminine. You got your feminine and masculine in there. So
That's interesting. I
it's
never thought
it's
about
like, so it's like, but it really does come down to building a habit. Just because you've done the healing, because you've become aware of the neural networks and you've helped them start to calm down, your body still has been trained to create certain chemicals of fear, of relaxation, of anxiety, sadness. For me, it's been sadness. It's been shifting, literally now using my masculine to shift my biochemistry, because I know I've done the healing work. Now it's a matter of retraining my body to generate joy chemicals, to not need an adversary to be motivated by, to not need a challenge to fight in order to get up and do the thing I want to do. And yes, to answer your question, sometimes it is still a struggle. Most of the time, Qigong comes much more naturally to me now. Like earlier today, I was feeling anxiety. I took 5 minutes to shake and rub my kidneys, and I felt way better instantly. I've trained my body enough now where my body knows like that's going to help, and my mind is on board. But that took habit, that took dedication, that took commitment, that took masculine, that took the healthy inner father saying, "Hey, son, I know you don't want to do this right now. I know you're really scared, and that's okay. Like let's do it anyway. I'll do it with you." It's not the toxic masculine of I'm going to force and push my way and do it anyway, and through exhaustion and through it's no, but it's like understanding that nuance, because we've lived in a world where the masculine has been so toxic and abusive, in general. I don't know your personal experience, but with me in the corporate world and navigating school and navigating all of that, unhealthy masculine.
Mm-hmm.
We can forge a healthy masculine inside of us, a remembrance of what it's like to be a healthy father figure to ourselves, where we don't just let ourselves melt into the couch. We say, hey, like, let's just do this thing. Come here, hold my hand. Let's walk there together. Let's do this, and then we can lay down. It's starting to build those habits, make those choices, and it is sometimes requires a lot of fortitude to override or to move through and to rise above the momentum of the biochemistry of the body. So to sum it all up, it's building the capacity in yourself to understand and tell the nuance, to ask yourself the question, do I need to heal anything right now, or is the healing complete? If the healing is complete, is this just my body generating the chemicals it's so habitually used to generating? And if that's the case, let me take this step, as uncomfortable it is right now, to drag myself out of bed, to drag myself to the position where I do Qigong, and to do it and to retrain my brain to generate a different biochemistry. And it's with that consistency and healthy masculine and dedication over time that Qigong now has become more automatic. There's still days where I do kind of have to drag myself to it, but most days I just love it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot there. I
Yeah.
immediately started thinking about ADHD and some other fellow I was following who talked about how the best way when you're kind of like out of dopamine is do a task you don't want to do, something more shitty than the task
Hmm.
you don't really want to do. Even if it's just go for a run for 10 minutes. Like to me, that does not sound enjoyable. But I'll be putting off a 5-minute email because I'm in that place, which I think you're exactly right. Like the chemicals are off. It's a familiar. I'm like it's safer to be cozy. So he kind of tied it to ADHD at least, which I definitely think would. Lucky I wasn't diagnosed. I'm too old to have been diagnosed and medicated. That kind of skipped me. Um, yeah, like just doing something that's even more uncomfortable than the thing I'm procrastinating from doing.
Mm.
So even just for a short period. Um, yeah, dude, it's interesting as well. I sent you that meme in Telegram. It was like an hour ago, right? And you were asking about how everyone's
Yeah.
doing stuff, and it's funny that we are talking about this because, you know, I went upstairs and did like 3-4 minutes. I get the the one thing that's really helped me again with that. Oh my god, I'm losing words. Like
Tucking the tailbone.
tucking in the table, yeah,
Yeah.
like actually taking my feet and putting the pressure towards them. Right, it really
Yep.
locks me in. The second I do that, and I even just start doing the wood, this dog here, Willow, comes in and she starts losing her mind. So I don't know if my energy shifts, if my aura shifts, but like it's within 10 seconds, she's like jumping at me.
Mm.
Not, she's not upset. It's kind of, she sees it as playtime.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's something about my demeanor that in that second that happens. And so, I'm upstairs and I'm thinking, and of course, the kids walk by or my wife walks by and they're like, what are you doing? But it feels so good, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, I was like, well, it's kind of like the funky chicken, and I'm kind of getting used to
Yeah.
this is what I look like when I do this. This is how I feel I look, but I think it's also the playfulness of it. Like it's okay to
Hmm.
be like, I don't care what people think. This feels great, and I
Yeah.
need this, right?
That's
So
an awesome. That's
that's
awesome, man.
that's the
I
main
love that.
at this point.
That's really cool. Yeah. Well, dogs were my first qigong teacher. I think I've shared that story with you before. So no, my first business out of after I quit corporate was a dog training business, and I just learned so much from dogs. I wasn't in. I was just starting my meditation journey. That was my introduction to like personal development, spiritual development. So I wasn't aware of energy or anything, but I learned from dogs of like how they shifted their state by shaking. And it's incredible to watch. Like if there's a little like ruckus in the dog park, and like after they're all like they both dogs would like part ways a little bit and then shake it off, or the dog walks by someone that they didn't like would just shake. So I always watch dogs now. So I'm sure your pups are just like both like feeling like, oh, what are we doing? Are we playing? But also like feeling the energy, feeling and feeling the shift in your aura, because that is when you're moving your hands and using your energy, you are swirling energy in new ways. So, what was the other thing oh gosh, you said two things. You're talking about, just looking silly and letting yourself look silly. Yeah, I love that. I love that for you. I'm really glad to hear that. And I'm laughing. I've been through so many stages of that, like doing it in my house and then doing it in front of friends, and then like who like are in my house or visiting, and then like doing it in the park, and then doing more and more weird stuff in the park. Like at first it was like, okay, getting comfortable just doing shaking and doing my typical flow, but now then it was like making loud sounds in the park and like not caring if people heard me, and then it was like doing more of the martial qigong that's a little bit intense and doing that, and then it's like now it's like in line at the grocery store, in the airport, doing a full flow, like, and just not caring and realizing that more than anything, yeah, sure, some people might think it's weird, but more than weird, people are often curious. They're like, what is this dude doing? And like, I've had people walk up to me and like, what was that? And like, just like super curious and like, great, good. Like, people like giving people the permission and planting seeds for them to perhaps get on a deeper embodiment journey. But yeah, definitely went through stages to get there.
So interesting. Yeah, I'm going through that right now in various ways for sure. And I was having a conversation with the three people yesterday. Actually, one of them was like just reminding like my design. I'm here to be observed,
Mm.
and getting comfortable with being observed.
Mm.
So I made a video a couple of weeks ago where I was just like, "Ah, fuck it," and so I created a new playlist. It's called "I'm not a doctor, I'm a drummer," but and then it's like, so here's my this is something I've learned that and it's just using a car buffer, right? So like two handles, because I can get everywhere of my body. I can do
Hmm.
my feet, everything. I'm in control of vibrating every cell in my body. So if we're 80%
Yeah.
water, I'm like shaking. But I won't even do that most days. I'm like,
Yeah.
for some reason, I deny myself of that amazing feeling. But I took it to my favorite ball tournament this summer. So we're out in the field, and it's a fancy, or not a fancy, it's a costume ball tournament. So every team has a theme. So everybody looks ridiculous. And I still remember feeling uncomfortable bringing my car buffer to the field and buffing
Mm.
myself.
Mm.
And it was because there was inevitably lots of comments. You're correct. It's more curiosity. There's always some wise guy that's, and I used to let those comments bother me. Now I couldn't care less actually. But I remember being bothered by it, which that little remembering will be lead to me not putting the thing in my car.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I don't act the buffer isn't in the car to go to the next ball game. Whereas,
Mm.
damn it, if I or it's the fall, it's pickleball now. I know the days that I like buff myself for 3 minutes, and for sure the qigong stuff. Um, I am like super focused, super athletic, and my recovery afterwards is way faster. Right? In
Mm.
this ball tournament, we play 7 games over 2 days. People that are 12, 15, 20 years younger than me are exhausted, and I'm like wake up Sunday morning and I'm still good to go. And
Mm.
I'm having alcohol and stuff like they are too. So it's not just me being drinking water and only eating vegetables. I still haven't I'm still not got the food thing down. Um, but my recovery is incredible, and it really is this boiler room energy like management when I remember to do it or feel comfortable doing it. So yeah, yeah, it's again, it's a habit. It's at this point, it's pure habit. I'm not bothered by being seen doing these things. I do remember when we were in Santa Fe and we were in the circle. Um, I forget what you call the part, but where the eye intensity and sticking your tongue out, right? Like that.
The lion's breath. Yeah.
Yeah, that. Part of me in my head, I'm like, good thing I'm wearing sunglasses because I feel like my intensity could kill someone if I really let go, right? Like quite literally shoot
Yeah.
lasers out of my eyes.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something that'd be interesting to see if I'd be comfortable doing that in a park. But just the rest of it is really, it is just habitual now. It's
It's so funny to hear you even just tie those two thoughts together. Like the sunglasses meant you weren't doing it in a park, and you're like, maybe one day I'll be comfortable doing it in a park. Like, what? Yeah, yeah, it totally wasn't you. You had your alternate personality.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, because I've learned a lot about wearing sunglasses with being a quad left. There's a lot of intensity in my eyes. I've noticed,
hmm.
and I have very different experiences when I wear sunglasses. To
Okay,
the point where like I've often contemplating going full Bono and just wearing them indoors
okay.
because when people talk to me, my mind is so good at shooting not maybe not good. It's not even valuable sometimes, but I can shoot 2 years down the line in a sentence and predict every outcome and reverse engineer it in like
Yeah.
1 second. And so if someone will say something to me, my face will change.
Hmm.
I'm responding to something that I've thought that's 2 years down the line. And it's like, ooh, that would suck. And the person will react and they'll start talking to me differently because they think what they just said startled startled me or upset.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I've spent
Interesting.
a lot of time with this because when I owned my computer consulting company, I realized that nobody was telling me the truth, but they weren't intentionally not telling me the truth. They were giving me bad news to make decisions on. I can hear myself hiccuping all of a sudden because
Hmm.
it's just such an awareness. But um, they're telling me something that's something I could have dealt with and no big deal. But somewhere in that sentence, I picked up on some other nuance, and my mind is again way down the line. And so my face will react, usually the eyes, and then they'll start shifting their tune because they think I'm upset or I didn't like the
Sure.
response. So I never get the truth from people, but they're not, as I say, not intentionally lying to me.
Right. No,
So
that
if
makes
I wear
sense.
sunglasses, I don't give a lot of expression
Hmm.
or as much. And
Interesting.
yeah, dude, it's a very, very interesting thing I've been experiencing. So much so, like I would go for walks and experiment with this. In fact, today it's a sunny day. I might go out for a little mushroom foraging with a friend, but I will walk past, like down the road, and there'll be cars coming towards me, and I will experiment with sunglasses on or off, and I will just have a regular smile on my face, right? And sunglasses off. Nobody's looking at me. Nothing like there. It's just like I don't exist. Sunglasses go on. That same smile, a superficial smile. They're all beaming back at me.
Hmm.
There's something really interesting to observe in that,
Hmm.
and I do know that, like, as I've studied, I'm not studied. I nerded around with like just people's eye movements and stuff, and like, yeah, here I go rambling again. But I can't remember the number. We either have 85,000 or 155,000 doppelgangers, because we look at 23 points on the face, but we only need 16 of them, I think it is, to think it's the same person. So
Hmm.
if you're wearing a hat, or all of a sudden you have a beard, you could potentially be, I totally saw you, and it's not,
Hmm.
right?
You said 85,000?
It's either eight, like both numbers are ridiculous. I
Yeah,
can't
that's a lot. That's really
exactly,
interesting.
but it's not six. It's
Yeah.
like 85,000 or 150,000. I can't remember.
Hmm.
Sometimes my mind doubles things, so I'm thinking 85,000. Still a
Okay.
lot of people like
Yeah, that's a lot.
me, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
So, and it's because your eyes are looking for these points on the face, but I think 7 or 8 of them are around the eyes.
Hmm.
And sincerity in a smile is in the crease in the side of your eyes. That's how someone can tell that your smile is legit or not, I guess, in general. And so I've
Hmm.
experimented that with sunglasses on and off. And with them off, people can tell even from a great distance, it seems, and there's no engagement. I throw on sunglasses and people they're driving and walking towards me and they're beaming. And I think it's because they're not sure if my smile is intended for them or not, but they don't want to take the chance,
Hmm.
if that
Okay.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to circle back to like one of the things you said while you were sharing all that around the car buffer not being in your car because of the because of the remembrance of that discomfort of that feeling. And you know just to tie in a lot of what we're talking about, um, this that to me is an opportunity for embodied like masculine and feminine balance. It's like, see, in that moment, it sounds like actually there's an opportunity for a feminine approach followed by a masculine approach, which I think is like for me what works the best. It's like when I notice a part of myself is still changing my behavior because of a fear or an external stimulus, that I'm changing my state because of something that happened out here. Then I'm usually realizing, okay, there's a neural network kicking off, firing unconsciously that's trying to protect me from something. And it doesn't know that this person is couldn't harm me. To this unconscious neural firing, that is a very real threat. That person who said that who joked about your buffer. So if it feels really hard to put the buffer back in the car, for me, there's the first step is actually creating a little bit of space for that part of you to actually and to appreciate that part, appreciate that you're afraid, appreciate that it feels really edgy to bring that buffer back, to actually give space to that part of you that has worked really freaking hard. That like this is a part of your brain. It's not, the thing that keeps people stuck the most is trying to fix a pattern. And that's driven home by Western society and the mind loves it. The mind will try to do that for years. We'll try to figure out what's wrong. If I could just figure out what's wrong, I can fix it. But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. You literally built this thing into your unconscious to keep you safe. That's not a problem. It's just realizing and appreciating the amazingness that you did that, the amazingness that this pattern has been operating
Mhm.
under the surface for all these decades to protect you or years. And in that awareness, in that softening, in that, if you can actually get to an emotional state of almost giggle, like gratitude, like, oh, this is ridiculous. Yeah, it's definitely not helpful that I'm like not putting the buffer in my car because of this one guy. And it's also really fucking awesome.
Mhm.
Can I curse on your podcast?
Fuck yeah, why not?
All right, I don't know. I don't know where it's going. Uh, it's actually it's really awesome. It's
Yeah.
like this is an amazing mechanism that my brain is doing automatically for
Mhm,
me to keep me safe, and it's also really ridiculous,
mhm,
and it's beautiful, and it's like when you can get to that genuine place of feeling like, wow, I'm not wrong, I'm not broken, I'm not anything, nothing's broken here that needs to be fixed because I'm afraid of this thing. It's actually really freaking amazing. The most illogical thing happens because this pattern is illogical. So when you approach it illogically, you actually help it relax. When you meet it with softening, with gratitude, with love, with giggles, it actually helps that neural network rewire itself because it's like, oh, I'm actually feeling appreciation. I'm actually, the world is actually safe enough for me to be expressed, and oh, I can actually relax.
mhm.
And then step in with the masculine. It's like this is how I'm not a parent, but I imagine like motherly energy and fatherly energy can work really well together with an external child. It's like giving space for like honoring what they're feeling, everything, and then okay, and now let's put the buffer in the car.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, no, thank you for that. And this whole week has been a reminder of, yeah, it's like all the messages are like, I'm already whole, I'm already perfect, I've already done the work. It's old habits now. The other thing I'm realizing too is I'm returning to themes that were around this time last year and the year before, and it does seem to be seasonal as well, almost. Like the fall comes in, and the it really is, call it astrology, call it whatever, but when the leaves come off the trees, it's time for rebirth and cleanup, and so it's almost like circling back on old stories, this time with a little more, with a lot more um, kindness to myself about it. Before it'd be like, oh fuck, you're doing it again, or that negative, and it's not there now. It actually kind of is just
Mm,
habitual. It's really just, and I'll say it again, like the last 3 days, everything is just reminding me, dude, you're forgetting to breathe. Like,
yeah.
just breathe, or sit up straight. Like I can feel myself slouching, and I feel better when I sit up straight, but I don't do it very often. And I wonder, I'll have to explore that, like why, what the comfort is for that still at this point. I have to
Mm.
work with that.
Like so when sitting up straight creates what inside you when you're sitting up straight?
When I sit up straight, focus clicks in. I feel ready to go. I feel strong, but
Mm.
I generally don't. That is not my default position.
And I mean, to let me know if this resonates because I definitely don't want to project this onto you. But I mean, my I want to understand what's specific to you because I just think that's well, actually, and I don't know how things are in Canada. But if Canada is anything like the U.S., it's just par for the course. It's just like what we're trained to do societally, where most people are not holding good posture. Like
Mm,
America, in America, like good good posture isn't expected, isn't it isn't taught, it isn't like part. It's like relaxing and chilling, and it is pretty par for the course. So it's just a matter, and I've just started doing this recently. Like on this podcast, my back's relatively straight, but I'm leaned back. But often now, much more, I am practicing when I'm sitting. Um, like tucking my tailbone while I'm sitting and shoulders back and down and feet flat on the ground and spine pulled up. And even when I'm out, or especially when I'm at like an event and everyone else is chilling, but because I know when like you said, when I'm in that posture, I feel great. And I know I feel great because my energy is flowing properly. And that's been an edge for me. It's like really letting myself be that weird guy that is the one sitting, like everyone else is chilled and he's on the edge of the seat with like shoulders back and down and like sitting straight. And it's very much noticeable, like, oh, I'm the only one sitting like this and being okay with that. Um, and doing it, yeah, more at home as well. But yeah, it does. It feels like overcoming the societal expectation. But I'm curious to hear your unique perspective.
Well, as for saying that, like I've always been uncomfortable sitting. Like I still recall. So I wonder if that's a little trauma I need to revisit again. But grade three, grade four, getting in trouble because I couldn't sit cross-legged. Like I still
Mm,
can't. Um, and I went to see a chiropractor in Bermuda. So this is 1999. And I might need to go get another X-ray because at the time he told me that my spine was fused to my right hip,
mm,
and so I just believed him on the surface because that's what he told me. I have since done a ton of healing, increased my mobility at big time. Hips is definitely where the problem was. I still can't cross my legs. Like it's an excruciatingly painful thing. And in 1978, if you didn't sit like the teacher told you, you got in trouble. And I was already that neurodivergent kid, I realize now, that was already probably driving those teachers crazy. So
right.
it really just led to me, dulling my shine in every possible way. So I think it was almost like sitting in a ball was safer than,
Mm,
so that's kind of been a big part of my evolution this year is getting comfortable with being extra. Because aura wise, I am. And you got all that stuff going on. But like
so
physically,
do you want to keep telling that story
no, no, it's I
about being extra?
yeah,
Is that true to you? Do you believe that you're extra?
no, and thanks for asking because again, it's kind of all week people have been saying to me like challenge me on the words but as I'm saying it, I'm hearing myself saying it. So it's gonna kind of like just I need to just walk through that
Well,
step.
are you okay if I like tie this into the incarnation cross conversation a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
And it might not be relevant, but it feels like I'm just connecting dots. It's like because I resonate with the idea of like being extra or times in my life where the environment around me was giving me information that were telling me like again it wasn't okay to be all of me. And I think the key thing there was the environment. So it's and okay, so my brain just went in four different directions. But the first piece is when you start being who you're here to be, which isn't extra, it's being who you're here to be. Yeah, there's going to be the people around you. If you've created an environment filled with people that were created from a version of you that wasn't being your full self, those people are likely going to be intimidated in some fashion, or some of those people by your full self. That doesn't mean you're being too extra. That just means you're in the wrong place or not wrong, but the people around you aren't aligned with who you really are.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean they need to exit your life necessarily. But what I've seen happen time and time again in my life and other people's lives is that when a client or myself steps more fully into the full expression of who we are, typically a whole swath of people are no longer aligned and fall away, which is painful and induces a lot of grief and sadness and isn't always the easiest thing. Sometimes they're gone for good. Sometimes they reorient in your field and your aura. So friends that I used to hang out with every day, now I see once a year and it's awesome. And it's great. And like they were aligned to be really close to that version of me. This version of me, not so much, but we're still aligned to check in on the phone, to hang out once a year. I also now know in in hanging out with them, I have a choice. I can choose to be my full self and intimidate them and make them feel triggered, which can benefit them in some ways, mirroring what's possible for them. And in some ways, it can just be harmful for unnecessary harm. So sometimes when I'm with those people now, I will choose to take my voltage down a notch to meet them where they're at. But it's no longer because I think I'm extra. It's because I want to have intimacy with that person. And I know that if I try to meet them here, they're not going to be able to meet me intimately. If I meet them, and when I'm going up and down, I'm not meaning better than or less than. It's more of like just a visual guide, because I don't, maybe left to right is better. But if they can't meet me here, but they can meet me here. So I can choose to be here, but it's a choice.
Yeah.
Not because I think I'm less than. So I think, and this is the incarnation cross piece. It's like when you start being who you're here to be, the full trust of your body, little by little, more and more, you're going to watch your world around you change. You're going to watch your incarnation cross happen more. And part of that is probably going to be a shift in the people around you.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting too that you even sort of self-corrected, because I think it was like, I'm not here with them, because people think, I think that implies intellectualism because it's near the
Yeah.
head,
Yeah.
but it's vibe, right? It's how
Yeah.
you're resonating with the person. So
Yeah.
it's, even that was an interesting adjustment that I saw you make, because in my head
Yeah.
I was like, I was kind of doing the same thing as you were talking about it. So
Mm.
yeah, no, it's yeah, I'm experiencing that real time, I think, at this point, and getting more and more comfortable with it. Um, that idea of being extra. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she was asking about she was asking, or I was telling her about the mohawk and how it came to be, because it really was just a COVID haircut that was hidden under a hat in Zoom calls. But like around the house, I had this little black mohawk, like my hair is dark black. So, um, and even just getting comfortable with that 2.5 years ago, it was just like, is it okay to do this? And the first time the mohawk was out in public was at my gym, and it was in the winter, and I'm in Canada. So I wore a toque there. And all of a sudden I'm trying to work out with this toque on, because I was wearing a baseball hat, and it's too warm. So all of a sudden I was sweating. I had this mop on my head, so I took it off, and the reaction I got was, "Oh, cool haircut!" Right? That's not what I was hearing in my head.
Mm.
The thing was not coming off.
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, okay, it's cool with these 6 people. That's interesting. All right," and then just went back to my world. But it was like an experiment evolving.
Mm.
Then we went to Florida 6 months later. No hair color yet, but just walk. I just decided, like, I'm going to be in Florida. Nobody knows who the fuck I am. I'm just going to walk around with a mohawk and just experiment with what that is. And
Mm.
it honestly, dude, it took a lot of uh, energy and to do that. There was just this. Is it okay? I remember that feeling for sure.
Mm.
And then over time, I
Mhm.
started adding, like, 1 day color. Um, and then now it's like every 4 weeks I bleach it and pick a new color. And but it took a long time. And then out in public, uh, Wendy will comment and say, "Oh, people are staring at us," and I don't see them anymore. I'm not observing that anymore, because
Mm.
it's I don't see it unless I'm in a call like this, where it's like, "Oh yeah, there it is again," right? I got it all
Yeah.
in my head, right? So, um, but it makes her uncomfortable still, right? Like, she didn't sign up for that. So, and but we've been actually, like, even talking through that, like, her, and again, you can go all design on this, but like, the second arrow, she's not here to be observed,
Yeah.
and doesn't want to be observed.
Mm.
And it's interesting, like, even the term extra I used here earlier, like, that's the term she used to describe me, right? So it's still
Mm.
wrestling with,
Yeah. Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And I can be extra in different ways with her. I notice, like, sometimes it can be the visual thing, but sometimes it's just like I get animated on a topic, and I can tell when she's just like, that it's enough. She just, like, all of a sudden she's just turned. It's just she can't take anymore.
Yeah.
You can't hear anymore. So it's something that I wrestle with. But
Yeah. Richard Rudd has the 59th gene key, or sorry, scratch that. He may or may not have the 59th gene key. That's not what I meant to say. When Richard Rudd talking about the 59th gene key, um, he has an audio file, you could download for like $3 off the website, and it might be a good listen for you. I can give you the gist, because it was super powerful. It's like this idea of the intimacy I was talking about before. This story you're telling about made me think of it. It's like he talks about his relationship with his father, and how Richard just wants to talk about esoteric things and like all the things he's into, but his father just doesn't care about any of that, and he never will. But maybe he will, but he hasn't to this point, so what he loves to talk about is gardening. And that's his favorite. That's where Richard's father lights up. So it's kind of what I was sharing before. It's like when I go home, or I talk to various people, like I know, like I used to think these people can't get me. I wish they could get me because they I want to be able to be my full self with them, was the storyline. And so it blocked me to intimacy. And I learned this from the 59th gene. I have the 59th gene key. It's my design earth. It's my purpose gene key. So it's a big lesson for me. But how I was blocking intimacy, because like my family loves me so much, and I was like blocking that love because I wanted them to like love me the way I wanted them to love me, or like be able to love a part of me that they just don't quite understand. And so I wasn't receiving any of their love, versus like, let me access the part of me that like can and be fully embodied in the part of me that they do really get and they do really love, and lean into, like, maybe drop little nuggets about different parts of me, but like, and meet them in the things that we have shared passions about, or even try to get to know their passions more. Like, I so badly want them to understand what I'm passionate about. Have I really taken the time to really dive into what they're passionate about, or to meet them in their way of speaking or their way of communicating? And it's like just continuing to like remind myself of that, the flip side of the coin of intimacy. And in a lot of ways, I could use the extra label to say that they're extra in their own ways, and like
Sorry, a phone call just came in.
That's all right. And that, like, I could label them that way. I've never thought of it this way before, but now that I'm thinking about it, like, that the parts of them that I'm choosing aren't aligned with me, or extra. So anyway, just the 59 gene key, like, his audio on it, it hit me so deeply, and it still sits with me to this day.
Awesome. Well, I'll check that out, because I think Wendy has the 6, so there might be some interesting clues there as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, super interesting. Even just, it's come up a couple times this week, and I have a feeling I know who that is, but they can wait. A bully, a technical bully. Yeah, it's coming up with my kids as well. Like, I'm really trying to reconnect with them after, and we all live in a small house, and it's an interesting. It's interesting to be in this frame of mind now. Like, I'm definitely just observing, and so, and even this conversation, like the fact that you're just kind of channeling that conversation to me, it's the timeliness of that is very interesting. So, yeah. Last night I came home from the office, and I didn't know what to do with myself, and my kids are just sitting on the couch here playing Lego Harry Potter. And normally I'd be like, unless I'm playing it, I'm not interested. And I just positioned myself between the two kids and just hung out, just watched them play, let the dogs join us. And it took a while to get comfortable doing that for some reason. But I was just observing even that going on. And being like, actually, this is really nice. like I don't have to do anything. I'm just kind of responding to warmth and getting some connection with my kids that otherwise hasn't been easy lately. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have to sit with that a bit more, but funny with the gene keys too. Because it's come up twice this week. The 55th gene key is something I have out of an open solar plexus, and I listened to his audio on the 55 like 2 years ago. I was in the British or the English countryside on a train. I think we were coming from Glasgow back to London. And the whole time I remember thinking, like, I wonder if Richard Beaumont is nearby. I need to go just bang on his door. And I never did do that. But I ended up listening to this gene key and having Richard read it to you while you're on a train. And
mm,
the that particular one really was a very interesting one, that and it reappeared this week, and I listened to it
mm,
again, and it's like an hour and a half, so it's not a short listen, but that 55 is actively going on for me right now, as far as like what's going on in the world, how I'm physically changing. And he talks about this um, dragonfly and how it's like in a cocoon and it's bursting out, and it only eats the sun. It doesn't really need food anymore. And I'm finding myself like even just food is not something I'm interested in. It's a chore.
mm,
Um, yeah, it's just
mm,
very interesting. And it's kind of like he talks about kind of the evolution of humans and how we're going to eat more sun, less salt, for example. Like we
mm,
get salt in all these foods, right? And I feel like that sunk into my DNA 2 years ago, and
mm,
I didn't realize how much of an effect it had. But yeah, and part of that is creating space for that sun, like getting rid of so much trauma. And I did it through edible cannabis and sitting with my metaphysical book and shitting everything out of me for 2 years. So, you know, like even to circle back to what you were saying earlier, like I got to a point where I couldn't find trauma anymore.
mm,
I could go on a mushroom trip and I would float around my old school neighborhood and I'd be like, yep, no, nothing there on that, in that location, nothing there. Like I was looking for it.
mm.
So it's curious that it's kind of resurfaced this week that it's really nothing to fix. It is habits. It's old stories. It's just baggage now. They just need to like drop. So and part of that, I kind of view myself like a hot air balloon, right? Like the only way to
Mm.
rise is to cut the sandbags off the side of it, right? And
Yeah.
so I feel like I've gotten rid of so many sandbags that there's room for light to enter my body, and it's really not entering so much as food. The old habits are still like, you know, going somewhere and grabbing food because it's easy. So I need to like challenge myself to, maybe foraging for food may take a little more effort. It's time to be a little choosier. So,
Well, yeah, you said something right at the beginning about why bother, and like waking up with that. And I was in the last, oh gosh, it feels like lifetimes ago, but it was definitely within the last 6 months ish, 6, 8 months. I was also contemplating a lot of why bother.
mm,
And for me, it was like, because logically, for me, it's like if I'm not fighting anything, if I'm not wrestling with a sandbag, if I'm not like it's realizing that I the why bother question for me was coming out of a forgetting of what it's like to just to truly just be and to not need to have a bother. I don't need to
mm,
have a bother. I don't need to have anything bothering me. Well, yeah, why bother? Like, why would I need a bother? Like, I just can be. I can just actually not be motivated by a challenge. I have the channel of struggle, so there's always a little bit of struggle in my life, but I don't have to be motivated by it. I don't have to seek one out. It's just like
mm,
the answer to me of why bother is to not bother, to not be bothered, to just be, to really allow the world to allow delight. So it's really I don't have words for it yet because I want to say my motivation shifted from overcoming to seeking delight or being, but it's almost like that's not quite it. And so then I want to say it's actually like motivation has evaporated as a concept in general, and I no longer require motivation. I just wake up and follow my sacral and just be. But that's not quite right either. So it's in process, but it's definitely been an interesting journey.
hmm. Yeah, very interesting. I uh, I had my gallbladder out 2 years ago, almost now,
Mm,
because I had stomach surgery, and that kind of led to that. And one thing I realized about the gallbladder is it's like that's where piss and vinegar is stored effectively. That's where you get your
mm,
gall from. And for a while there, I had tapped it into like I didn't have any piss and vinegar in me anymore. I didn't have
mm,
that. I used to call it the eye of the tiger. Like you're I don't know if you're old enough to remember the first or second Rocky film, but like his wife's in a coma in bed, and he can't even train to get his ass. He's gonna get his ass kicked, but he can't get the will to train because his wife's in a coma. So he needs
Mm.
to be the side of her bed. Um, and then all of a sudden she comes out of the coma, and she gets him to like look him right straight in the eye, and then she just says, "Come here," and then she says, "Win." And then you hear this bell go, and he's just like, and all of a sudden it's this huge, famous Rocky montage, right? And it's interesting that that's what I seem to be waiting for. Um, but it's a waste of time waiting for that. So it's a very interesting thing. Then it occurred to me that someone that said it, like, you can lose your gallbladder, but the energy of that doesn't really leave your body.
Mm. Mm.
Like, my mind had kind of wanted to, like, why am I stuck? Why am I not motivated? And then it
Mm.
was like, oh, there you lost your gallbladder, you lost your. But
Mm.
that really was, it came from like a I'll show you kind of vibe.
Mm.
Like, if and I think that maybe was that, like, I knew what I was capable of, but rarely got to express it, the power that I had. Because if I did,
Mm.
it was too much, it was too extra, it was dangerous, it was.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to even just revisit that now. I could feel it like moving through me, like it just needed to kind of
Mm.
like go,
Yeah.
because I
Mm.
don't need that motivation, and I know what you mean by just like being.
Mm.
I'm finally getting comfortable with that,
Mm.
but
Awesome.
it's really been difficult. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the same for you, but
Oh yeah. I mean, because it's the simple thing. It's not a complex 10-step plan to healing that the mind can latch onto.
mhm,
It's just be
mhm,
present with whatever's happening, and that's hard. Simple but hard. That's why the mind hates it. The mind would much rather be distracted by another book, another coach, another retreat that it
mhm.
can lock itself into and not have to be with the intensity. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's go back to that 3420. There's some serious power there, and especially like with you, it's I would assume even more pronounced. So I want to learn from that. I forget the term. Ra had described it as something Buddha.
Oh,
The
I'm not sure.
It was like whatever term he used. It really resonated for me. Now I can't think of it. It was like it was the word Buddha, but it was also the other word was it wasn't violent, it wasn't aggressive, but it was in a word like that. Like
Hmm.
be quiet and just. But when you're ready, there's an explosiveness to it.
Hmm.
I
I'm
wish
not sure.
I can't. I wish I could remember because the word was perfect at the
Hmm.
time. Um,
Yeah.
I I can sense that word that I can't think of right now. Like again on the pickleball court, and I can really experiment with it. It's the idea for me if I'm standing still and I'm focused. So for me, it's tuning out all noise because I'm highly acoustic and waiting for the ball to come to me, but also not giving any clue that I'm ready.
Hmm.
There's some sort of enjoyment with that.
Hmm.
So uh, it's standing almost perfectly still, waiting to strike like a Black Panther kind of thing. Like the energy is conserved, but when it's ready, it's explosive.
Hmm.
Um, to make it even more potentially dramatic, is in pickleball, it's a very noisy sport. There's a lot of people that like complain about it in the area because it's a
Hmm.
lot of banging of plastic.
Hmm.
I have a special racket that is called an owl racket, and it's got a felt cover on it. So when I hit the ball, they can't hear it. So
Hmm.
that I'm extra explosive and deceptive because by the time I actually, in that pinpoint last second, decide to shoot, and because I'm so calm, my brain has calculated where to shoot it. It's like it's outside of my mental process now. My body physically knows where to put it, to wait to the last second because they're watching my body's. They're looking for clues from my body of where he's going to put it, and I'm waiting till like the exact. I can feel myself waiting to the last second, And then I've got this racket where when I hit it, they can't hear it. And so it's just no matter what, it's almost comical to me watching them respond because it's just like this, as the ball goes back to them because I'm only like 6 feet away and pickleball,
Yeah.
you get really close to each other. Yeah, sorry, I just had to talk through that because it's quite entertaining to me. But
Yeah, that's cool.
that is that, but I'm also a terrible partner when I'm not focused. And
Mm.
it's so easy to get caught up in the energy of the people around me. The person
Yeah.
that's my partner 2 minutes later is now my opponent. And so
Yeah.
it's very interesting those interactions I'm having with people. And so being able to remove myself from, I just used to take on everyone's energy and their whether they were happy with their game, whether they were frustrated with the other person, I've become hyper aware of how much that was actually impacting me. And so now I'm able to really turn that off and just be still and calm
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's powerful.
I think you just nailed it. I don't think you need to hear anything from me.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting me just.
uh, yeah, I love it. I love the sports
It's been
analogy.
there, but I need to get it out. So
No, it's great. I love the sports analogy. I love the way you're playing with the 3420. I haven't played sports in a long time. I used to love tennis, and but I would love to actually revisit a sport with like the intention to play with my 3420 energy. That sounds really powerful. Yeah.
pickleball is it, man. We've talked about getting you up here. I'll show
Yeah.
you and we'll take you out because it's like tennis except closer. It's more tactical. It's more
Yeah.
fun. It's everywhere, so it's easy. It's accessible, but there is also an explosiveness to it. They call them
Cool.
firefights, right? Like it's kind of like tennis. You're at the back of the court, but then everyone rushes to the kitchen.
Hmm.
Now it's all about like basically playing outdoor giant ping pong with
Right.
someone's face. So it's quite enjoyable. So you might dig it.
Okay.
So,
Sounds great.
uh, but so yeah, that you don't play many sports. Is that because you don't like sport, or because you find that the Qi Gung allows you to drain that battery effectively?
No, I think it's just sacral just isn't guiding me to that right now. I mean, if I have two tennis rackets in the back of my car, and I've got tennis courts nearby. Like I could walk to tennis courts. If I had someone that was like, "Do you want to play tennis?" and I could respond yes to, I probably would.
Mhm.
Um, like yeah, the sports I really enjoy. I mean, I like playing a friendly football game or soccer game. When those things happen, volleyball can be fun. I guess I've just never. It's not a priority in my world. I throw kettlebells around. And I buy maces. I love like weightlifting. I love hiking. So I feel like a lot of my like movement activities are rooted around that. Um,
Can I ask a question with that though? So most of
Yes,
the
just a real quick time check. So I do have to run like very like now.
well,
But yes, I can like answer one more question. Yeah,
well, like all the things that you mentioned are fairly individual. Like you could go hiking with someone, you could play doubles
yeah.
tennis with someone, but is that because you need that? You enjoy it more with yourself, or you don't enjoy the
Uh,
interactions with other people's energy?
I do both. I think sport. There's definitely still there. Sports will be when I do re-enter the sports world. I think right now I am focused on like the health of my body individually. And like my relationships with food and all of that. And then when I do choose to revisit and re-enter the sports world, I think there's a lot for me there
Mm.
because it wasn't a safe place for me in school. I wasn't athletic, so and for me, one thing I'm playing with, which what I think will be really fun when I do revisit sports, what I'm playing with in my business right now is being a stronger finisher. I feel like even playing fighting like video games, like fighting games, or in sports, like I could be really good, but when it came to the getting the last point to win or the last shot or the last anything, like finishing strong is where I always like kind of just didn't show up to that moment for whatever reason. Like I could feel fear enter my body and like cloud my mind, and I wouldn't be as focused, and it was time after time after time like I'd lose in the last point or the last second of the last thing. And I realized I was in a similar pattern in my business for a few years where I would build all this momentum, and then when it was time to I just needed to take that energy one more month or week or day or phone call, and I'd get annoyed and frustrated, or then I'd self-sabotage and then bring it on and then do it all again, and was stuck in. So I'm breaking through that right now in my business. So I'd be curious to re-explore that in sports at some point.
Well, I know you gotta go, but and learning to trust the thoughts that come to mind when people are sharing. But like last night, I was listening to the first half hour of Joe Rogan and Elon's. They had a podcast yesterday.
Okay.
Just open with them casually talking about video games, and Elon was talking about how surgeons, they did a test, and if surgeons played a particular video game, they were 26% more accurate in their surgeries or something because of the extreme focus of the video games. And
Yeah.
they were kind of like presenting the idea of like maybe surgeons should have to play this video game and demonstrate they can do a certain skill before they're allowed to operate on people at this point, because they're just effectively, they did the mental training, they learned what they're supposed to do, but they don't actually have the acuity in their hands and the focus in the moment to do the job properly. And it's a very interesting conversation where
Yeah.
they started this. So yeah. Anyways, dude, yeah, I know you gotta go. Love chatting with you, and I'm serious. We should get you up here, and I want to play some pickleball with another 3420. Plus,
Yeah.
and then just have you out at Funky Town and show
Yeah,
you.
for sure. That'd be amazing. Let's shoot for Q1 next year, sometime January, February, March. I would love that. January could actually be a good month. So yeah, let's keep that conversation going. And yeah, this is super fun. I'm still not exactly sure what the podcast is about, but I really love everything we talked about. So it's great.
It's due diligence. It's 1%
Cool.
improvement every day. So I
Great.
learned a couple things today that I can work with. So
Cool. That's awesome. All
hopefully,
right. Much love, brother.
all right, buddy. Talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.